The snow drifted down in silent flakes, covering Vermont's tree-lined roads in silver dust. Inside her sleek black Mercedes sedan, Olivia Bennett sat tapping the steering wheel impatiently. The dashboard clock blinked 9:43 p.m. Another meeting delayed, another investor waiting, and Christmas Eve quietly slipping by without her noticing. Her phone buzzed with her assistant Janet's voice reminder about tomorrow's charity gala. Olivia sighed. At 42, she had built Bennett Health Technologies from a struggling startup into a billion-dollar medical innovation company. Yet tonight she felt more alone than ever. Success had bought her everything except time, and the sound of her own thoughts echoed louder than the hum of her perfectly tuned German engine. A sharp sputter interrupted the silence. The sedan jerked, lights flickered, and the engine died mid-turn on a narrow snow-covered road. No, no, not now. Olivia hit the steering wheel with her palm. The windshield wipers froze halfway across the glass and the heater stopped blowing warm air. The world outside was white, endless, and still. Not a single car in sight. 15 miles from the nearest town with the most important business deal of her career hanging in the balance, and her car decided to give up. Classic. Olivia tried her phone. No signal. The irony stung. The woman who revolutionized healthcare connectivity with AI systems couldn't even call for help on her own country's back roads. She leaned back, breathing out mist into the cold cabin. For the first time in years, she felt powerless. The storm outside was beautiful but merciless. She stepped out of the car, Italian leather heels crunching in the snow, and the wind bit her cheeks through a thin layer of expensive makeup. Her cashmere coat provided little warmth against Vermont's December fury, only reminding her how far she was from the climate-controlled boardrooms of Boston. The meeting with Horizon Capital had gone well mostly. Lead investor James Wright seemed impressed with the new AI diagnostic platform, but he wanted concrete results before committing $150 million. Great potential isn't enough anymore, Ms. Bennett, he had said. We need to see proof that your technology can deliver what you're promising. 3 weeks. That's all she had to secure the funding before their competitor MedTech Solutions swooped in with their inferior but market-ready product. Olivia checked her watch again, muttering to herself, "Just great, Olivia. Merry Christmas to you, too." Then distant headlights. They appeared like hope breaking through darkness, growing brighter, until an old dented tow truck rolled into view. The sound of its engine was rough but reassuring. It stopped beside her car, and the door creaked open. Out stepped a man in a thick flannel jacket and snow-dusted beanie. His boots crunched the snow as he approached, holding a flashlight. "Need a hand, ma'am." His voice was warm and casual but carried a quiet confidence. Olivia blinked. He looked nothing like the people she dealt with in her world. His hands were rough nails, clean but worn from work face weathered by years under the sun. A stark contrast to the smooth manicured executives she encountered daily. She hesitated before answering. "My car just died. Mind if I take a look?" He didn't wait for permission, already kneeling beside the front tire, peering under the hood. "I think your alternator might have frozen, and there's probably an issue with your electronic control module. That's what happens when luxury meets Vermont weather." A faint grin played across his face. Olivia frowned, not used to people making light of her situation, but something in his tone wasn't malicious, just matter-of-fact. His tow truck idled beside them, and through its window she spotted a little girl curled up under a blanket, asleep in the passenger seat. A tiny Santa hat covered her head, glowing faintly under the cabin light. "You brought your daughter this late?" Olivia asked, genuine surprise replacing her corporate mask for a moment. "Sophie," he nodded, adjusting something under the hood. "Couldn't leave her home alone? Single dad life? She wanted to see the Christmas lights on our way back from her friend's house." His voice carried no apology, only quiet truth. "I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Miller." Olivia found herself watching him work, his breath visible in the cold hands, steady and practiced. No assistants, no technicians, no rehearsed politeness, just real human effort. For a moment she forgot how expensive her car was, or how many meetings she was missing. All she saw was a man who showed up when she needed help most, without expecting anything in return. The wind picked up again, howling through the trees. The snow was falling faster now, reducing visibility to mere feet. Ethan looked up at the sky, concerned. "Storm's getting worse. We need to get your car to town before the roads become impassable." He stood up, wiping his hands on his jeans. "I can tow you to Pine Ridge. It's about 5 miles ahead." Have a shop there. You have a repair shop? Olivia asked, reassessing him slightly. Miller's Auto. Not fancy, but we get the job done. He was already hooking her Mercedes to the tow truck movements, efficient and purposeful. You can sit in my truck if you want. It's warmer inside. Sophie won't mind. Olivia hesitated but eventually followed, stepping into the tow truck's cabin. It smelled faintly of coffee and pine, the radio playing a soft Christmas tune. The little girl stirred, blinked sleepily, and smiled at her. Hi, she whispered. You're pretty. Her front tooth was missing, making her smile endearingly crooked. Thank you, Olivia managed, caught off guard by the innocent compliment. When was the last time someone had said something to her that wasn't calculated to get something in return? Outside, Ethan secured the final chains on her car, the sound of metal against metal, barely audible over the growing storm. Within minutes, they were moving slowly down the road, her Mercedes trailing behind them like an obedient pet. The heater in the truck worked better than it looked, blowing warm air that smelled faintly of cinnamon. Sophie likes those air fresheners, Ethan explained, noticing her slight sniff. Says they make the truck smell like Christmas cookies. Sophie nodded enthusiastically from her seat, now fully awake. Dad says we're going to make real cookies tomorrow. It's tradition. Her voice was high and clear, untouched by doubt. Sounds nice, Olivia replied, unsure how to talk to a child. Her world didn't include many children, just board members, investors, and employees who needed constant direction. The truck's headlights cut through the thickening snow, illuminating a welcome sign. Pine Ridge, Vermont, population 1,872, where neighbors are friends. The small town emerged from the white blur, a main street lined with small businesses, all decorated with Christmas lights that glowed defiantly against the storm. Even in the heavy snow, Pine Ridge radiated warmth. Not much compared to Boston, Ethan said, noting her gaze, but it's home. The truck pulled up to a two-story building with a large garage door and a small apartment above it. A hand-painted sign hung above the entrance. Miller's Auto Repair, Estinu 2019. Ethan maneuvered her Mercedes into the garage with practiced ease, then killed the engine. Welcome to my humble establishment, he said, helping Sophie down from the truck. We'll get your car fixed up, but it'll take some time. Those German luxury models have complex systems. The garage was surprisingly clean, and organized tools hung in perfect alignment on pegboards, diagnostic equipment neatly arranged on workbenches. The concrete floor was free of the usual oil stains Olivia associated with auto shops. A small Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with ornaments clearly made by a child's hands. You can use the office phone to make any calls, Ethan said, pointing to a small room off to the side. Cell reception's better in town than on those back roads. Olivia nodded gratefully and headed for the office. Janet picked up on the first ring. Olivia, where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours. My car broke down near Pine Ridge. I'm at a local repair shop. Olivia kept her voice low, eyeing Ethan as he began examining her car. How did the follow-up with James Wright go? Janet's hesitation told her everything before she spoke. Not great. MedTech Solutions made contact with him right after your meeting. They're pushing hard, offering immediate implementation. Wright's assistant called to say he's reconsidering his options. The familiar knot of tension formed in Olivia's stomach. MedTech's system was inferior, everyone in the industry knew it, but they had mastered the art of overpromising. What about the charity gala tomorrow? Is everything set? Yes, but there's more, Janet continued. The Weather Service just issued a severe storm warning for northern New England. 3 to 4 days of heavy snow and ice. Vermont's already closing major highways. You might be stuck there for a while. The knot tightened. That's not possible. I need to be back for the gala. The entire board will be there, not to mention potential investors. Olivia glanced through the office window at the swirling snow outside. It was falling faster now, already covering the truck they'd arrived in. I don't think anyone's going anywhere for a while, Janet said apologetically. Even flights are grounded. Olivia ended the call and returned to the garage where Ethan was deep under the hood of her Mercedes. How bad is it? She asked, though she already knew the answer wasn't good. Ethan emerged, wiping his hands on a rag. Electronic control module was fried. Alternator needs replacement. And there's something wrong with your fuel injection system. Parts alone will cost a few thousand. I'd need to order them from Burlington, but with this storm... He looked toward the windows where snow was piling up along the sills. Nothing's moving in or out for at least 3 days. 3 days? That's impossible. I need to be in Boston tomorrow. Olivia's voice rose slightly, the control she prided herself on beginning to crack. Ethan shrugged, unbothered by her tone. Nature doesn't care much about our schedules. He nodded toward his daughter, who was arranging small toy cars in a line. Sophie and I learned that the hard way. Olivia took a deep breath. Is there a hotel in town I can stay at? Pine Ridge Inn down the street, but Ethan hesitated. During Christmas week, they are usually full with visiting families. And with the storm, people who are passing through are probably stuck too. I'll take my chances. Olivia pulled out her phone, found the inn's number online, and dialed it. After a brief conversation that confirmed her fears, she hung up with a sigh. You're right, they're fully booked. The next town with a hotel is 30 miles away, Ethan said, and the roads are already closing. Sophie looked up from her toys. Is the pretty lady staying for Christmas, Daddy? The question hung in the air, innocent yet complicated. Olivia Bennett, CEO of Bennett Health Technologies, worth millions on paper, stood stranded in a small-town garage with nowhere to go on Christmas Eve. The irony wasn't lost on her. Ethan seemed to consider something, then made a decision. There's an apartment upstairs. Used to be my workshop before I converted it. Nothing fancy, but it's clean and warm. You're welcome to stay there until the road's clear. Olivia studied him, searching for an angle, a hint of ulterior motive, the kind she was accustomed to detecting in business dealings. But his face held only straightforward concern. Why would you do that? You don't know me. It's Christmas Eve, he said simply, as if that explained everything. And you're stranded. What else is there to discuss? Sophie clapped her hands. Yes, a Christmas visitor. Her excitement was palpable, untainted by adult suspicion. Olivia weighed her limited options. A garage apartment in a town she'd never heard of? Or, what exactly? Sleeping in the office of an auto shop. She nodded slowly. Thank you, I appreciate it. Don't thank me until you see it, Ethan said with a gentle smile. Like I said, nothing fancy. He led her up a narrow staircase at the back of the garage. The apartment was small but surprisingly cozy. A compact living area with a worn but clean sofa, a kitchenette with basic appliances, and a single bedroom visible through an open door. What caught Olivia's attention were the Christmas lights strung along the ceiling, casting warm patterns across the wooden floor. Simple paper snowflakes hung from fishing line near the windows, clearly Sophie's handiwork. We use it sometimes when we work late, Ethan explained. Sophie does her homework up here while I finish with cars downstairs. It's perfect, Olivia found herself saying, and meant it. The honesty in her voice surprised even her. Sophie darted past them both and went straight to a small bookshelf. I keep my special books here. She pulled out a worn copy of The Night Before Christmas and hugged it to her chest. Daddy reads it every Christmas Eve. Ethan smiled at his daughter with unmistakable devotion. It's tradition, right after cookies. You make cookies on Christmas Eve? Olivia asked, trying to remember the last time she'd done anything traditional for the holiday. In recent years, Christmas had become just another opportunity for networking at the company gala. We decorate them, Sophie corrected, with the seriousness only an 8-year-old could muster. Daddy bakes them first, then we put frosting and sprinkles on them. Olivia set her designer handbag on the small coffee table, feeling strangely out of place in her tailored wool suit and silk blouse. Here, surrounded by handmade decorations and well-loved furniture, her usual armor of luxury brands seemed excessive, even silly. I'll get your bag from the car, Ethan offered, heading back downstairs. Left alone with Sophie, Olivia felt oddly vulnerable. The little girl stared at her with undisguised curiosity. Your dress is really pretty. Are you a princess? Olivia couldn't help but laugh, a genuine sound she rarely heard from herself anymore. No, definitely not. I run a company that makes medical technology. Sophie considered this. Like the machines in hospitals that beep. Something like that. We create systems that help doctors know what's wrong with patients faster. So you help people get better. Sophie's eyes widened. That's even cooler than being a princess. Before Olivia could respond, Ethan returned with her overnight bag, a luxury leather weekender she'd packed for what was supposed to be a quick overnight trip to Vermont and back. The snow's coming down hard now, he reported. Good thing we got here when we did. As if punctuating his words, the lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Ethan frowned. Power grid gets temperamental in storms like this, when we might lose electricity. We have candles, Sophie announced proudly, and flashlights, and blankets. Daddy always makes sure we're prepared. Former Boy Scout, Ethan explained with a self-deprecating smile. Always prepared is basically my middle name. Olivia found herself studying him more carefully now. In the warm light of the apartment, she noticed details she'd missed before. The intelligence in his eyes. The way he carried himself not with the practiced posture of her executive peers, but with the natural confidence of someone comfortable in his own skin. His hands showed years of physical work, but there was precision in how he moved and almost like an engineer. Her gaze drifted to the wall behind him and stopped. Framed under glass hung a degree. Not just any degree, a Master of Engineering from MIT. The name on the certificate, Ethan J. Miller, class of 2008. Ethan noticed her discovery and shrugged slightly. Different lifetime. You're an MIT engineer, she stated, recalibrating her assumptions about him. Working as a small-town mechanic. I'm an MIT-educated mechanic, he corrected gently. There's a difference. Sophie tugged at her father's hand. Daddy designed cars before. Big ones in Detroit. He was super important. Ethan ruffled her hair affectionately. Not that important, Munchkin. Olivia's professional curiosity piqued. Which company? Stellantis. I led a development team for their hybrid engine program. He said it matter-of-factly without pride or regret. That was before Sophie's mom passed away. The simple statement hung in the air, carrying weight beyond the words themselves. Olivia felt a pang of empathy she rarely experienced in her business-focused life. I'm sorry. Ethan nodded acknowledgement but didn't elaborate. Instead, he turned to practical matters. There's food in the fridge, bathrooms through the bedroom, towels in the closet. He glanced at his watch. It's getting late. Sophie and I should head home. You don't live here, Olivia asked, surprised. We have a cabin about a mile from town. Nothing special, but it's ours. Pride touched his voice briefly. I'll come by tomorrow morning to check on you and start working on your car. Sophie looked disappointed. But Daddy, it's almost Christmas. We can't leave her alone on Christmas Eve. Ethan hesitated, clearly torn between his daughter's wishes and respecting Olivia's privacy. Before he could respond, the decision was made for all of them. The lights flickered again, then went out completely. The apartment plunged into darkness, save for the faint glow of emergency lights in the stairwell. Power's out, Ethan stated unnecessarily. Whole town, probably. Sophie's excited voice came from the darkness. It's a Christmas blackout adventure. Olivia heard Ethan moving efficiently through the dark, followed by the scratch of a match. A warm glow spread as he lit a camping lantern on the kitchen counter. Sophie, get the candles from the emergency kit, please. Within minutes, the apartment was illuminated by the soft light of a dozen candles arranged strategically around the room. The Christmas lights hung uselessly now, but the candlelight created an even warmer, more intimate atmosphere. Looks like we're staying here tonight, Ethan said, glancing out the window at the intensifying blizzard. Too dangerous to drive to the cabin now. Sophie clapped her hands in delight. A Christmas sleepover. Can we still make cookies? Gas stove still works, Ethan confirmed with a grin. Cookies are still a go. Olivia felt like she had stepped into an alternate reality, one where power outages were met with delight rather than frustration, where a broken-down car led to impromptu Christmas celebrations rather than missed meetings. In her world, any deviation from the plan spelled disaster. Here it seemed to be the beginning of an adventure. I should call Janet again, she murmured, reaching for her own phone only to find it dead. Damn it, do you have a landline? Ethan nodded. In the office downstairs. I have a generator that keeps it running. They descended the stairs by lantern light, Sophie bouncing ahead with a flashlight sweeping its beam across the walls and giggling at the dancing shadows. The garage felt different in the dark, less a place of business and more a cave of mysterious shapes and potential. The office phone worked and Olivia quickly updated Janet on her situation. I'm stranded in Pine Ridge for at least 3 days. The board meeting will have to be virtual, and someone else will need to host the gala. Janet sounded resigned. I figured as much. The storm's all over the news. I'll handle things here, but Olivia, her voice grew concerned. George Thompson was asking about the right investment. He seems nervous. George Thompson, CFO, and the most conservative member of her board, always the first to panic, always pushing for safer, less innovative approaches. Tell him everything's under control. Wright is still considering our proposal. And if he isn't convinced, then convince him. Olivia's CEO voice returned briefly. That's what we pay you for, Janet. She hung up and turned to find Ethan leaning against the door frame, respecting her privacy, but clearly having heard the shift in her tone. Sounds like you've got fires to put out, even in a blizzard. The business world doesn't stop for weather, she replied, suddenly aware of how cold that sounded. Neither does a car engine, he countered, but sometimes you have to let things cool down before you can fix them properly. The simple wisdom in his statement caught her off guard. When was the last time anyone had spoken to her without careful calculation? In her world of corporate politics, every word was measured, every interaction a subtle negotiation. They returned upstairs to find Sophie had transformed the coffee table into a cookie decorating station. She'd laid out sprinkles, frosting, and a plate of plain sugar cookies that Ethan had apparently baked earlier. I saved the Christmas tree ones for tonight, Sophie announced proudly. The stars and bells we already ate yesterday. Olivia stood awkwardly at the edge of this domestic scene, feeling like an intruder. I should let you two enjoy your tradition. I can stay in the bedroom. Sophie looked horrified at the suggestion. But you have to decorate cookies too. It's Christmas Eve. Sophie, Ethan began gently. Ms. Bennett might want some quiet time. Olivia, she corrected him, surprising herself. Please call me Olivia, and... She hesitated, looking at Sophie's hopeful face illuminated by candlelight. I suppose one cookie wouldn't hurt. 30 minutes later, Olivia Bennett, who regularly negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts and managed a team of over 300 employees, was laughing at her inability to keep frosting inside the lines of a simple cookie shape. Sophie, it turned out, was an exacting teacher. No, you have to squeeze the bag gentler, she instructed, demonstrating with her own cookie. See how I make the snow on the tree's branches. Ethan watched from the kitchenette where he was heating water on the page stove for hot chocolate. His eyes held amusement, but also something else, approval, perhaps at seeing his daughter so animated with their unexpected guest. I'm better with spreadsheets than frosting, Olivia admitted, examining her messy creation. It's not bad for your first Christmas cookie ever, Sophie declared magnanimously. Not my first ever, Olivia corrected, then paused. Though I can't remember the last time I decorated one, probably when my parents were still alive. The words slipped out before she could filter them, something that never happened in boardrooms. Ethan looked over, curiosity in his eyes, but he didn't pry. Sophie had no such reservations. Your mommy and daddy are in heaven too, like my mommy. Sophie. Ethan's voice held gentle warning. It's okay, Olivia assured him. Yes, Sophie. They died in a car accident when I was in college. 20 years ago, but sometimes it felt like yesterday. The call that came during finals week. The funeral she arranged while other students were planning Christmas break. The family home she sold because she couldn't bear to keep it. My mommy died in a car crash too, Sophie said solemnly. I was only 3, so I don't remember her much. But Daddy tells me stories about her all the time. Ethan brought over mugs of hot chocolate, his face a complex mix of emotions. Emily loved Christmas, he said quietly. These traditions were all her idea. The cookies, the book reading, the homemade ornaments. Sophie and I keep them going because it feels like she's still part of it somehow. Olivia accepted the steaming mug, noticing the tiny marshmallows floating on top. My mother was the same way. Christmas was her favorite holiday. After she died, I just stopped celebrating. It seemed easier. But harder in a different way, Ethan suggested, his voice free of judgment. Olivia nodded, surprised at his perception. Yes, exactly that. Sophie, sensing the adult conversation had turned serious, focused intently on adding more sprinkles to her cookie. The candles flickered, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Outside, the storm howled, but in this small apartment above a garage in a town she'd never meant to visit, Olivia felt an unexpected sense of shelter that had nothing to do with physical walls. I think it's story time, Ethan announced, breaking the momentary silence. Sophie immediately abandoned her cookies and ran to get the Christmas book from earlier. You have to listen too, she informed Olivia, with the authority only children can muster. It's tradition. I wouldn't dream of breaking tradition, Olivia replied, finding she meant it. They settled on the sofa, Sophie in the middle, clutching the well-worn copy of The Night Before Christmas. Ethan read with the practiced ease of someone who had performed this ritual many times, his voice shifting for different characters, adding sound effects that made Sophie giggle. Olivia watched them, this father and daughter, bound not just by blood, but by shared rituals and mutual devotion. Her own life suddenly seemed sterile in comparison. She had achievements, yes, recognition, wealth. But sitting here in candlelight, watching the simple joy of a bedtime story, she wondered what she'd sacrifice along the way. When the story ended, Sophie's eyes were drooping, despite her obvious effort to stay awake. "Time for bed, kiddo," Ethan said, lifting her easily. "You know Santa can't come if you're still awake." "But where will Daddy sleep?" Sophie asked sleepily, looking at Olivia. "That's his bed in there." "I'll take the couch," Ethan assured her. "I've slept on it plenty of times when working late." Olivia immediately protested. "I couldn't take your bed. The couch is fine for me." "The couch is too short for me," he pointed out practically. "And you've had a rougher day than expected. Please take the bed, I insist." Too tired to argue further, Olivia relented. She helped clean up the cookie decorating supplies while Ethan put Sophie to bed in a small alcove off the main room that clearly served as her occasional bedroom, complete with a child-sized bed and stuffed animals. When he emerged, closing the curtain that gave the sleeping area privacy, Olivia was standing by the window watching the snow fall in the glow of the emergency streetlights. The town looked like a scene from inside a snow globe, perfect, peaceful, isolated from the rest of the world. "Quite a change from Boston," Ethan commented, joining her. "Like a different planet," she agreed. "In Boston, I'd be preparing notes for tomorrow's board meeting right now, or reviewing quarterly projections. Instead, you're stranded with a small-town mechanic and his daughter on Christmas Eve." Ethan's voice held no self-pity, only a hint of amusement. "Life's strange that way." "Life rarely goes according to plan," Olivia said, thinking of her own carefully structured world currently spiraling beyond her control. Ethan studied her profile in the candlelight. "Would it be presumptuous to guess that you usually make sure it does go according to plan, I mean?" The observation was too accurate to deny. "I built my company from nothing. Control isn't just a preference, it's a necessity." "What does your company do exactly?" Sophie mentioned something about medical machines. As Olivia found herself explaining Bennett Health Technologies' core products, AI diagnostic systems that identified patterns human doctors might miss, predictive healthcare platforms that anticipated patient needs before they became critical. She spoke with the passion that had convinced investors and board members alike, the vision that had driven her through endless 18-hour workdays and sacrificed weekends. Ethan listened intently, asking intelligent questions that revealed his engineering background. "So you're essentially creating systems that think the way doctors do, but without human limitations. More like systems that partner with human expertise," she clarified. "The technology isn't meant to replace doctors, but to give them better tools." "Noble goal," he acknowledged. "Healthcare needs innovation. My wife might still be here if—" He stopped, leaving the thought unfinished. Olivia waited, sensing there was more to the story than he was sharing. Finally, Ethan continued, his voice quieter now. "Emily had symptoms for months. Fatigue, headaches, vision problems. Doctors kept saying it was stress, maybe migraines. By the time they did the right scan and found the brain tumor, it was too late." His hands clenched briefly. "The standard protocol failed her. The human element failed her." Understanding dawned. "That's why you left automotive engineering." He nodded. "After she died, Detroit felt wrong. All those resources devoted to making cars marginally better, marginally faster, marginally more luxurious. Meanwhile, the medical system that was supposed to save my wife couldn't even diagnose her correctly." He glanced toward the alcove where Sophie slept. "I brought her here to start over. Simple life, good community. Room to breathe and grieve. And the engineering degree. All that training, you just walked away." A faint smile crossed his face. "I didn't stop being an engineer. I just changed what I engineer." He nodded toward the garage below. "Cars are just puzzles with engines. Every day brings a new problem to solve. It's satisfying work." Olivia tried to imagine walking away from everything she'd built, starting over in a small town, finding satisfaction in simpler challenges. She couldn't picture it. "Don't you miss it, the innovation, the cutting edge?" Sometimes, he admitted. But then I look at Sophie, see her growing up with space to run and neighbors who know her name, and it seems like a fair trade. He turned back to the window. Besides, who says innovation only happens in big cities and fancy labs? Before she could ask what he meant, a particularly strong gust of wind rattled the windows, making the candle flames dance wildly. One guttered out completely. "Storm's getting stronger," Ethan observed. "We should probably get some sleep. Morning will come early, especially with an excited 8-year-old on Christmas Day." Olivia hadn't even considered that tomorrow was Christmas. In her mind, it was just another day she needed to get back to Boston, another deadline approaching. But here in Pine Ridge with Ethan and Sophie, Christmas wasn't just a date on the calendar. It was an event, a celebration, something anticipated with joy rather than stress. "Thank you," she said suddenly, "for taking me in. For the cookies and the story and everything." Ethan looked slightly surprised by her earnestness. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," she countered, certain of this. "They wouldn't have." Their eyes met in the candlelight, an unexpected moment of connection between two people from different worlds. Something shifted in the air between them, recognition perhaps of kindred spirits despite their obvious differences. For a brief moment, Olivia felt the wall she'd built around herself weaken. The moment passed when Sophie murmured something in her sleep, drawing Ethan's attention away. "I should check on her," he said. "Bathroom's through there if you need it. Extra blankets in the closet if you get cold." Olivia nodded and retreated to the small bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. The room was simple, a full-size bed with a patchwork quilt, a small dresser, a reading lamp that currently served no purpose without electricity. Unlike the main room with its Christmas decorations, this space felt more functional, a place for sleep rather than celebration. She changed quickly in the dark, exchanging her designer suit for the silk pajamas she'd packed for her hotel stay. The contrast between her expensive sleepwear and the humble surroundings wasn't lost on her. Sliding under the quilt, she was surprised by its weight and warmth, clearly handmade, possibly a family heirloom. Despite her exhaustion, sleep proved elusive. Her mind raced with worries about the company, the right investment, the board's reaction to her absence. What if the roads remained closed for days? What if Wright signed with MedTech Solutions while she was stranded here? Years of work could unravel because of one snowstorm and a faulty car engine. From the other room, she heard Ethan moving quietly, probably setting up his makeshift bed on the couch. There was something comforting about the presence of another person nearby, not an employee, not a business associate, just a human being who had shown kindness without agenda. When had she last experienced that? Even her closest friends were industry colleagues, relationships built on mutual benefit and professional respect. Her last serious relationship had ended 2 years ago when Mitchell, a pharmaceutical executive, had accepted a position in California. They discussed the situation with the same pragmatic approach they'd applied to everything. Long distance wouldn't work. Neither could relocate better to end things cleanly. No drama, no messy emotions, just a business decision applied to personal life. The wind howled outside, rattling the old windows in their frames. Rather than finding it disturbing, Olivia felt oddly soothed by the storm's raw power. There was honesty in its fury, a reminder that for all humanity's innovations and technologies, nature remained untamed. She must have eventually drifted off because the next thing she knew, weak morning light was filtering through the curtains. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. The unfamiliar ceiling, the sound of wind, the faint smell of coffee, none of it matched her Boston penthouse or the luxury hotels she typically frequented. Then it all came back: the broken down car, the storm, Ethan and Sophie, cookies, and candlelight on Christmas Eve. Christmas. Today was Christmas, and she was spending it stranded in a small Vermont town with strangers. Voices drifted from the other room. Sophie's excited chatter and Ethan's deeper, calmer responses. Olivia checked her phone, still dead, and even if it weren't, probably still without signal. For the first time in years, she was completely disconnected from her business life. The realization was both terrifying and strangely liberating. She dressed quickly in the casual clothes she'd packed as a backup: designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, still far too formal for a day in a small-town garage, but the best option available. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found Sophie sitting cross-legged on the floor by the now cold wood stove, examining the contents of a stocking. "Olivia, Merry Christmas." The little girl bounced up and ran to her. Santa came even with the power out. And look, He left something for you too. Sure enough, a third stocking hung beside the others, a simple red one without decoration. Olivia looked questioningly at Ethan, who stood by the kitchenette where a camp stove now heated a coffee pot. Sophie insisted, he explained with a slight shrug. Christmas magic apparently extends to unexpected guests. Olivia was touched by the gesture, clearly Ethan's doing, even if attributed to Santa for Sophie's benefit. That's very kind, but unnecessary. It's Christmas, Sophie stated, as if this explained everything, the same reasoning her father had used about offering shelter the night before. In their world, it seemed Christmas justified all manner of kindnesses. The stocking contained simple items: a chocolate bar, a pair of warm socks, a small snow globe of Vermont, and a hand-drawn card from Sophie showing three stick figures standing by what appeared to be a Christmas tree. That's you, me, and Daddy, Sophie explained proudly. Our Christmas together. It's beautiful, Olivia said honestly, unexpectedly, moved by the child's easy acceptance of her into their holiday. Ethan brought over a mug of coffee. Power's still out across town. Roads are closed. We're properly snowed in. He delivered this news matter-of-factly without the panic it would cause in Boston. But the gas lines are still working, so we've got hot coffee and can cook breakfast. And we can still have Christmas dinner, Sophie added excitedly. Daddy already put the ham in the special cooker thing before the power went out. Propane smoker, Ethan clarified. It's outside on the landing. Should be done by afternoon. Olivia tried to process this information. These people who barely knew her were including her in their Christmas dinner plans without hesitation. In her world, such invitations always came with unstated expectations. Business to be discussed, connections to be leveraged, favors to be traded. This felt different, simpler, genuine. I don't want to intrude on your family holiday, she began. Sophie looked confused. But you're already here, and nobody should be alone on Christmas. Right, Daddy? Ethan nodded, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Hard to argue with that logic. Besides, where else would you go? The whole town's shut down. He had a point, even if she wanted to leave, and she was surprised to find she didn't, not entirely. There was nowhere to go. The realization should have frustrated her, but instead she felt an unexpected sense of relief. For the first time in decades, Christmas Day held no obligations, no networking events disguised as celebrations, no endless stream of professionally necessary phone calls. Just snow silence and the company of a kind man and his enthusiastic daughter. Then thank you, she said simply. I'm honored to join your Christmas. Sophie beamed, then immediately launched into an explanation of their Christmas morning traditions, opening presents already completed. Then breakfast, then playing in the snow. If weather permitted, then Christmas movie watching until dinner time. But the power's out, Olivia pointed out gently. No movies today. We have board games, Sophie countered without missing a beat. And books, and Daddy can tell stories about when he built race cars. Ethan raised an eyebrow. They weren't exactly race cars, Soph. They went really fast, Sophie insisted to Olivia, like zoom fast. Breakfast was simple but delicious pancakes cooked on the camp stove topped with maple syrup that Ethan explained came from trees just outside town. Ben Williams taps them every spring. Best syrup in Vermont, though everyone around here claims that title. As they ate, Ethan described his plans to examine Olivia's car more thoroughly once there was better light. The garage has skylights, so even without power, I can work during daylight hours. If I'm right about the electronic control module, I might be able to bypass it, temporarily get you back on the road with limited functionality until proper parts arrive. You can do that. Olivia was impressed despite herself. A hint of the MIT engineer showed through his modest demeanor. Modern cars are just computers on wheels. The principles haven't changed much, even if the components have. After breakfast, Ethan excused himself to check on the ham and then head down to the garage. Sophie immediately claimed Olivia as a playmate, bringing out a worn Monopoly board. I'm the banker, she announced, organizing the colorful money with surprising efficiency. Daddy says I'm good with numbers. Olivia smiled, reminded of herself at that age, always the one counting allowance, planning, lemonade stand profits, dreaming of business ventures beyond her years. I was good with numbers too. Is that why you're the boss of your company? Sophie asked, dealing out the starting money. Partly, Olivia acknowledged, but mostly because I worked very hard and didn't give up when things got difficult. Sophie nodded seriously. Daddy says that too, that nothing worth doing is ever easy. For the next hour, Olivia found herself thoroughly engaged in the board game, amused by Sophie's shrewd property investments and tough negotiation tactics. You drive a hard bargain, she commented after Sophie refused a trade that clearly favored Olivia. Daddy says you should never take the first offer, Sophie replied, rolling the dice again. He says that's how his old company tricked him. Olivia's interest piqued. His old company tricked him? What do you mean? Sophie seemed to realize she might have said too much. I don't know exactly, just that they took his ideas and didn't give him credit. It made him really sad and mad at the same time. Sad mad. Before Olivia could probe further, Ethan returned from the garage, bringing a blast of cold air with him. Ham's looking good, he reported, stamping snow from his boots. And I think I've got a better idea of what's wrong with your car. Olivia excused herself from the game, promising Sophie a rematch later, and followed Ethan back downstairs to the garage. In the natural light streaming through the skylights, her Mercedes looked strangely out of place among the more practical vehicles also waiting for repair: a pickup truck, an older sedan, a compact SUV. Ethan led her to the open hood where he'd connected diagnostic equipment to the car's computer. Your electronic control module is definitely shot, but that's not the only problem. The cold damaged your alternator, and there's something wrong with the fuel injection system. He pointed out specific components as he spoke, explaining the interconnected nature of the problems in terms she could understand despite her limited automotive knowledge. What struck her most was his evident respect for the vehicle's engineering, despite his earlier joke about luxury cars in Vermont weather. Can it be fixed? She asked mentally, calculating how many more days of meetings she might miss. Eventually, yes, but parts for this model will need to come from the Mercedes dealership in Burlington. With the roads closed, he let the implication hang. So I'm stuck here, Olivia concluded, finding that she felt more resigned than panicked now. Ethan hesitated, then offered, I might be able to rig a temporary solution. It won't be pretty and it won't give you all the features, but it could get you back to Boston in a day or two once the main road's clear. Not quite as quick as you'd like, but better than waiting a week for parts. Olivia studied him, curious. You'd do that, MacGyver a luxury car, just to help me get home faster. He shrugged, a half smile playing across his face. Consider it a professional challenge. Besides, I get the feeling you've got important things waiting back in Boston. A company doesn't run itself, she agreed, though, with less urgency than she would have expressed yesterday. Thank you. That's above and beyond. Don't thank me yet. I still have to make it work. He turned back to the engine, already mentally solving the puzzle. Olivia found her gaze drawn to a workbench in the corner, partially covered by a tarp. Beneath the covering, she could make out what appeared to be technical drawings and a small-scale model of some kind of engine. Before she could inquire, a voice called from upstairs. Daddy, Olivia, come look. The snow stopped. They both looked toward the garage windows. Indeed, the howling wind had ceased, and while snow still covered everything, no new flakes were falling. The storm had broken, at least temporarily. We should go out and play before it starts again. Sophie's voice held the unmistakable excitement of a child seeing fresh snow on Christmas Day. Ethan glanced at Olivia. She'll be disappointed if I say no. Then don't, Olivia suggested, surprising herself with her relaxed attitude toward scheduled disruptions. Your car diagnosis will still be there in an hour. Ethan studied her for a moment, then smiled a full, genuine smile that transformed his face. Who are you and what have you done with the stressed CEO from last night? Olivia laughed, the sound echoing in the garage. Maybe she got lost in the snow. They headed back upstairs to find Sophie already bundled in snow gear, practically vibrating with anticipation. Can we build a snowman and make snow angels and have a snowball fight? Whoa, slow down, Ethan chuckled. One snow activity at a time. Olivia hesitated, looking down at her designer boots and cashmere sweater. I'm not really dressed for snow play. I have extra gear, Ethan offered. Emily was about your size. The mention of his late wife hung briefly in the air, not with sadness, but as a simple fact. Olivia nodded, accepting both the offer and the significance behind it. Minutes later, she found herself outside, bundled in borrowed snow pants, boots, and a puffy jacket that indeed fit her well. The small town of Pine Ridge stretched before them, transformed into a winter wonderland. Every surface was coated in pristine white, the morning sun creating a dazzling display of light and shadow. Sophie immediately flopped backward into a snowdrift, creating a perfect snow angel. Come on, you try. Olivia hesitated, trying to remember the last time she'd done something so carefree. College, maybe, before responsibilities and corporate image became constant considerations. Ethan caught her hesitation and raised an eyebrow in challenge. Too dignified for snow angels, Miss CEO. The friendly provocation was all it took. Olivia Bennett, chief executive of Bennett Health Technologies, fell backward into the snow and spread her arms and legs, laughing as the cold crystals found their way past her borrowed collar. And for a moment, just a brief, perfect moment, the world of board meetings and investment deals and corporate rivalries ceased to exist. There was only the clear blue sky above the crisp winter air and the sound of a child's delighted laughter. Perfect, Sophie declared, examining Olivia's snow angel with critical approval. Now we need to build the best snowman ever. It's tradition. As Olivia helped roll increasingly large snowballs for their creation, she found herself watching Ethan with his daughter, the easy affection between them, the inside jokes, the unspoken understanding. Despite the tragedy in their past, they had built something beautiful together. A life with purpose and joy uncomplicated by the endless striving that characterized her own existence. A strange feeling settled in her chest, not quite envy, not quite longing, but something adjacent to both. Recognition, perhaps, of what she'd sacrificed on her climb to success. The roads not taken, the simple pleasures set aside in pursuit of greater achievements. The snowman took shape, crooked but charming, with Sophie's hat perched on its head and Ethan's old scarf wrapped around its neck. As they stood back to admire their creation, the sound of engines broke the winter silence. A snowplow rumbled down the main street, followed by utility trucks. Looks like the town's digging out, Ethan observed. Power might be back on soon. Olivia felt an unexpected twinge of disappointment. Power meant connectivity. Connectivity meant returning to her real life, to obligations and deadlines, and the constant pressure of running a company on the cutting edge of medical technology. How soon do you think the roads will be clear enough to drive? She asked, her CEO mindset reasserting itself. Ethan studied the sky, then the main road where the plow was making progress. Major highways probably by tomorrow. Back roads might take another day. But if I can get your car running, he shrugged. Potentially tomorrow afternoon if I work through today. Tomorrow afternoon, less than 24 hours in this strange interlude would end. She would return to Boston, to her penthouse with its minimalist design and spectacular city views, to her corner office and executive team, and the right investment deal hanging in the balance. And Ethan and Sophie would continue their small-town life, building snowmen and decorating cookies and reading Christmas stories by candlelight. The thought created an unexpected hollow feeling in her chest. Sophie tugged at her hand. What's wrong? You look sad. Olivia forced a smile. Not sad, just thinking about going back to Boston soon. But it's still Christmas, Sophie protested. You can't leave on Christmas Day. That's against the rules. What rules? Olivia asked, genuinely curious about the child's perspective. The Christmas rules, Sophie stated with absolute certainty. Christmas is for being with people who care about you, not for driving in cars alone. Out of the mouths of babes. Olivia met Ethan's gaze over his daughter's head, finding unexpected understanding there. He, too, seemed to recognize the significance of Sophie's simple declaration. People who care about you. Was that what was happening here? After less than 24 hours, could these two strangers, a small-town mechanic and his precocious daughter, actually care about her? Not about CEO Olivia Bennett, not about what she could do for them, but about her as a person. And more unsettlingly, did she care about them in return? The thought was interrupted by the distant sound of church bells, somehow made clearer and purer by the snow-covered landscape. Noon already, Ethan noted. We should head back. Ham should be about ready, and these old bones need warming up. You're not old, Daddy, Sophie giggled, throwing a small snowball that caught him squarely in the chest. He feigned mortal injury, staggering dramatically before scooping her up and spinning her around, her laughter echoing across the snow-covered yard. Olivia watched them, this perfect tableau of father-daughter joy, and felt simultaneously like an intruder and a welcome witness. As they trudged back toward the garage, Olivia's business phone suddenly vibrated in her pocket, the first sign of returning cellular service. She pulled it out, seeing the screen light up with missed calls, texts, emails. The real world intruding on this Christmas Day interlude. Ethan noticed her attention shift and nodded understandingly. Feel free to make your calls. We'll get lunch started. I should check in, she agreed, already scanning the notifications. Most urgent were the messages from Janet and from George Thompson, her CFO. The right investment situation had escalated in her absence. As Ethan and Sophie headed upstairs, Olivia remained in the garage, returning calls and reasserting control over her company from afar. Janet reported that the charity gala had proceeded without her, with her VP of operations giving the welcome speech in her place. George was more concerned with the rights situation. He's meeting with MedTech Solutions today, Olivia. Today. On Christmas, George's voice carried barely concealed panic. We're going to lose this deal if you don't intervene personally. It's a blizzard, George. I can't exactly snap my fingers and teleport to Boston. Her voice came out sharper than intended, the calm she'd felt during the snowman building rapidly evaporating. Then call him, email him, something. This investment is make or break for the next phase, and you know it. She did know it. Without rights funding, the advanced AI diagnostic system, the one that could potentially save lives by catching conditions like Emily's brain tumor earlier, would be delayed by months, possibly years. And in the fast-moving medical technology field, delays meant death, not just for patients who could benefit, but for the innovation itself. I'll handle it, she assured George, ending the call. She composed an email to James Wright outlining again the superiority of their technology over MedTech's offering, emphasizing the long-term benefits over short-term implementation. Just as she was about to send it, she hesitated, her gaze falling on the tarp-covered workbench in the corner. Curiosity overrode professional urgency. She approached the bench and carefully lifted the edge of the tarp. Beneath it, exactly as she'd glimpsed earlier, lay detailed technical drawings and a small-scale model, but not of a car engine as she'd assumed. This was something entirely different. The design showed what appeared to be a hybrid power system with an innovative approach to energy storage and distribution. Notes in precise engineering handwriting filled the margins, calculations, modifications, ideas for improvement. Dates in the corner indicated that this was an ongoing project, with the most recent additions made just days ago. It's not finished yet, Ethan's voice came from behind her. Olivia turned guilty at being caught snooping, but too intrigued to be properly apologetic. What is it? Ethan approached his expression cautious but not angry. An idea I've been working on, microgrid system for healthcare facilities in remote areas or during power outages. Combines solar, small-scale wind, and a more efficient battery storage approach. For hospitals, Olivia's mind immediately made the connection to his personal history. He nodded. After Emily, I kept thinking about all the places where reliable power could mean the difference between life and death. Rural clinics, disaster zones, even regular hospitals during extended outages. He gestured toward the window where the power company trucks could be seen working on lines down the street. Like now, Olivia studied the designs with new appreciation, her business mind automatically assessing the potential. This is brilliant, she said honestly. Have you patented it? A shadow crossed his face. Not yet. Last time I developed something for a big company, they claimed ownership of everything, even the ideas I worked on in my own time. I'm being more careful now. Sophie's revelation about his old company tricking him suddenly made sense. They stole your intellectual property, Olivia surmised. Legally, according to the contract I signed without reading carefully enough, Ethan confirmed. Lesson learned the hard way. Before Olivia could respond, Sophie's voice floated down from above. Lunch is ready. The ham smells amazing. Coming, Ethan called back. To Olivia, he added, we can talk more about this later if you're interested, from one innovator to another. The way he said it, acknowledging her as a peer rather than just a stranded CEO, created an unexpected warmth in her chest. I'd like that, she said sincerely. As they headed upstairs to join Sophie for Christmas lunch, Olivia's phone vibrated again with another urgent message from her office. But for the first time in years, the constant demands of her company didn't seem like the only priority worth her attention. The small apartment above the garage, filled with the aroma of Christmas ham and the excited chatter of a child explaining the proper way to build a ham sandwich, suddenly felt more real and immediate than the corporate empire waiting for her in Boston. And the quiet engineer turned mechanic who had opened his home and traditions to a stranded stranger was proving to be far more interesting than she could have anticipated when her car broke down in a snowstorm on Christmas Eve. The Christmas ham tasted even better than it smelled. Seated at the small table in Ethan's apartment, Olivia found herself genuinely enjoying a meal without checking emails or taking business calls. Sophie dominated the conversation, jumping between topics with the energetic randomness only children can manage, from snowman building techniques to her school's science project to her dreams of becoming an astronaut engineer. Daddy says I can be anything if I study hard and don't give up, she explained carefully, cutting her ham into perfect squares. Even things that seem impossible. Ethan watched his daughter with quiet pride. Sophie won the school science fair last month, built a working solar-powered water filter. Olivia raised an eyebrow, impressed. At 8 years old, that's remarkable. I had help, Sophie admitted. Daddy explained the science parts, but I did all the building myself. She held up her small hands as evidence, a tiny scar visible on one thumb. After lunch, Ethan suggested showing Olivia around Pine Ridge while the weather remained clear. The power crews are making progress. Main Street should be operational by evening. Might be your only chance to see our little town before you head back to Boston. The invitation felt significant, not just a tour, but a glimpse into the life he'd chosen after leaving his engineering career behind. Olivia accepted, curious about this small community that seemed so different from her fast-paced world. They bundled up again in winter gear and stepped outside into the crystalline afternoon. The sky had cleared to a brilliant blue, the sun transforming snow-covered Pine Ridge into a dazzling display of light and shadow. Despite the bitter cold, people were emerging from their homes, checking on neighbors, clearing walkways, children already engaged in snowball fights and sledding adventures. Everybody knows everybody here, Ethan explained as they walked down the plowed main street, Sophie running ahead to greet various townspeople by name. When Emily died, the entire town showed up with casseroles and childcare offers. Didn't even know most of them yet, but they knew we needed help. Olivia tried to imagine such community response in her Boston high-rise, where she barely recognized her neighbors in the elevator. That doesn't happen in the city. Different worlds, Ethan agreed without judgment, each with advantages and disadvantages. They passed a small bakery with a handwritten sign, "Powers Back Hot Coffee" inside. Through the windows, Olivia could see people gathered, laughing and talking, celebrating this small victory over the storm's disruption. Mary's place, Ethan explained. Best cinnamon rolls east of the Mississippi. Want to stop in? Inside, the warmth and aroma of fresh baking enveloped them. Mary herself, a robust woman with silver-streaked hair and flour-dusted hands, immediately spotted them and waved them over. Ethan Miller, bringing a guest to town during the biggest storm of the decade. You always did have interesting timing. Mary's eyes sparkled with friendly curiosity as she evaluated Olivia. And you must be the stranded traveler I've been hearing about. News traveled fast in small towns. Olivia extended her hand professionally. Olivia Bennett, thank you for having me. Handshakes are for city folk, Mary declared, pulling Olivia into an unexpected hug instead. On Christmas Day in Pine Ridge, you get the full welcome. Coffee's on the house for anyone who survived last night's blackout. They settled at a small table by the window, Sophie immediately spotting friends from school and rushing off to compare Christmas presents. Mary brought over cinnamon rolls that made Olivia's usual protein-packed breakfast seem like deprivation, and coffee served in mismatched mugs. So Boston, Shum? Mary asked, sitting down uninvited but clearly welcome as far as Ethan was concerned. What brings you through our neck of the woods, besides fate and faulty car engineering? Olivia explained briefly about her investor meeting in Burlington, keeping the details vague. Mary nodded, seemingly satisfied with the limited information. Well, storms have a way of rearranging our plans for a reason, she said with the conviction of someone who believed firmly in greater purposes. Sometimes the detours are where the real journey happens. The philosophical observation from this small-town baker caught Olivia by surprise. Before she could respond, the bakery door opened, bringing another blast of cold air, and a tall man in a utility worker's uniform. Power's back on Main Street and Pine Avenue, he announced to general applause. Should have the rest of town up by nightfall. Phone lines are working again, too. Relief rippled through the bakery patrons. Ethan caught Olivia's eye. That means the apartment should have power now. and better phone reception for your business calls. The reminder of her other life, the life waiting for her in Boston, settled like a weight on Olivia's shoulders. She'd managed to push aside thoughts of Bennett Health Technologies and the right investment during their morning activities, but reality couldn't be postponed forever. They finished their coffee and continued the town tour, stopping at the small local museum, used to be the town hall until 1962. Ethan explained the library. They let Sophie check out 10 books at once because she reads so fast. And finally, the town square, where an enormous Christmas tree stood covered in snow and handmade ornaments. Every family in town contributes at least one ornament each year, Ethan said, pointing to a wooden star with Sophie's name painted across it. That was our addition this year. Sophie designed it. I just cut the wood. Olivia stepped closer, noticing other ornaments dating back decades, generations of Pine Ridge families marking their presence through small acts of creativity. The concept was foreign to her corporate mindset, where everything was measured by productivity and profit margins, yet she found herself oddly moved by the tradition's simple permanence. It's a way of belonging, she murmured more to herself than to Ethan. He heard her anyway. Exactly that. Not fancy or expensive, but real. Something that connects you to a place and its people. Their eyes met briefly, and Olivia felt a strange tug in her chest, recognition of something valuable she'd never prioritized in her relentless climb to success. The moment was broken by Sophie racing up to them, cheeks flushed with excitement. Mrs. Peterson says, the pond is frozen solid. Can we go ice skating? Please, Daddy, can Olivia come too? Ethan checked his watch. Maybe tomorrow, Soph. I need to get back to working on Olivia's car if she's going to make it to Boston soon. The reminder of her imminent departure cast a shadow over Sophie's excitement. But she just got here, and it's still Christmas. And she has important work waiting for her, Ethan explained gently. Remember, we talked about responsibilities. Sophie's shoulders slumped slightly. I know. Like how you have to fix Mrs. Abernathy's car even when it's boring because she needs it to visit her grandkids. Ethan nodded. Exactly. Olivia has people counting on her too. The walk back to the garage was quieter, Sophie's earlier exuberance tempered by the reality that their Christmas guest would soon leave. Back at the apartment, now warm with restored electricity, Olivia excused herself to make business calls, while Ethan headed down to continue working on her car. Janet answered immediately. Finally, where have you been? The board's called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Olivia paced the small apartment phone pressed to her ear. What happened? Is it right? Worse, George made a critical error in the financial projections he shared with potential investors. The numbers don't add up, and now Wright is questioning everything: our growth forecasts, adoption rates, even the basic technology claims. Cold dread settled in Olivia's stomach. George Thompson was a conservative CFO, but he was meticulous with numbers. A financial error of this magnitude wasn't just unlikely, it was completely out of character. Send me the report, Olivia demanded. There has to be an explanation. Already did. Check your email. And Olivia, the board is talking about leadership changes if this Wright deal falls through. Thompson's been meeting privately with Richardson and Westfield. The implications were clear. George Thompson, her own CFO, was potentially orchestrating a boardroom coup using this crisis as leverage. The company she'd built from nothing. The technology that could revolutionize early disease detection, the legacy she'd sacrificed everything to create, all hanging in the balance, while she was stranded in a small Vermont town. I'll be back in Boston as soon as possible, Olivia promised, her CEO voice firmly back in place. Schedule the emergency board meeting for late afternoon tomorrow. And Janet, tell George, I want complete transparency on those projections before the meeting. She ended the call and checked her email, finding the financial report Janet had mentioned. The errors were immediately obvious: growth projections inconsistent with their historical data implementation timelines, accelerated beyond realistic expectations, ROI calculations that seemed deliberately optimistic. These weren't accidental mistakes. They looked like intentional misrepresentations designed to collapse under scrutiny. The question was why? Why would George sabotage an investment deal crucial to the company's future? What did he stand to gain from undermining her leadership? Deep in thought, Olivia didn't hear Sophie enter the apartment until the little girl was standing right beside her. Are you leaving soon? Sophie's voice was small, trying for brave but not quite succeeding. Olivia set aside her phone, giving the child her full attention. I need to get back to work, yes. Some problems came up that only I can fix. Like how only Daddy can fix certain engines because he knows special tricks. Something like that. Sophie fidgeted with the hem of her Christmas sweater. Will you ever come back to visit us, or are we just Christmas people, not regular time people? The innocent question hit harder than any boardroom challenge. Olivia knelt to Sophie's level, suddenly aware that her answer mattered more than it should after just one day of acquaintance. I'd like to come back and visit, she said carefully. If that's okay with you and your dad. Sophie's face brightened. Really, you could see my science fair project next month and go ice skating with us. And maybe stay for movie night? We have movie night every Friday with popcorn and hot chocolate. The simple joys Sophie offered stood in stark contrast to Olivia's typical weekend of reviewing reports and preparing strategies for the coming week. When had she last watched a movie simply for enjoyment? Or had hot chocolate that wasn't grabbed from an overpriced cafe between meetings? That sounds wonderful, Olivia replied honestly. But first I need to solve my work problem. Is your dad still in the garage? Sophie nodded. He's been working super hard on your car. He says it's a tough puzzle, but he likes tough puzzles. Olivia headed downstairs to the garage, finding Ethan deep under the hood of her Mercedes, surrounded by tools and diagnostic equipment. With power restored, he had connected her car to a sophisticated computer system that seemed out of place in the small-town garage. He glanced up at her approach. Making progress. Your electronic control module is definitely fried, but I think I can bypass it with a custom solution. Not manufacturer approved, but it should get you to Boston. How soon? Ohio. The urgency in her voice was impossible to hide. Ethan straightened, wiping his hands on a rag as he assessed her changed demeanor. Problems at the office. You could say that. Olivia hesitated, then decided transparency was the most efficient approach. My CFO appears to be undermining a critical investment deal, possibly to force me out as CEO. I need to get back to Boston for an emergency board meeting tomorrow. Ethan's expression shifted from casual concern to focused determination. I can have you road ready by dawn. Not pretty, not full functionality, but drivable. The main highway should be clear enough by then. Thank you. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by an unexpected twinge of regret at the thought of leaving so abruptly. Ethan seemed to sense her conflicted emotions. For what it's worth, corporate politics hasn't changed since I left that world behind. Still the same power plays and positioning. Were you forced out? Olivia asked, recalling Sophie's comment about his old company tricking him. Ethan's expression darkened slightly. Not exactly. After Emily died, I developed a safety system that could have prevented accidents like her sensors that detect micro-expressions of driver fatigue or distraction. The company loved it, patented it immediately under their ownership since I was an employee. Then they shelved it. Shelved it, Heiss. Cost-benefit analysis, he replied, the words carrying old bitterness. Implementation would have been too expensive relative to projected lawsuit costs from accidents. They literally calculated that letting people die was cheaper than saving them. He shook his head. That's when I knew I had to leave. Couldn't be part of a system that valued profit over human lives so explicitly. Olivia absorbed this, recognizing uncomfortable parallels to decisions she'd witnessed, even some she'd made herself in the healthcare technology sector. And now you're developing that microgrid system for hospitals. He nodded. On my own terms this time. No corporations claiming ownership, no shareholders demanding quarterly returns at the expense of the ultimate goal. He gestured to the tarp-covered workbench. It's slower without big resources behind it, but at least I know it won't get shelved if it could save lives, but might hurt the bottom line. His words carried no direct accusation, but Olivia felt their weight nonetheless. How many decisions at Bennett Health Technologies had been driven by similar cost-benefit analyses? How many potentially life-saving innovations had been delayed or modified to satisfy investor expectations? Before she could respond, her phone rang again, the special ringtone she'd assigned to Board Chairman Richardson. I need to take this, she apologized, stepping away. The conversation was brief, but confirming her worst fears. Richardson was calling the board vote earlier than expected, positioning it as a vote of confidence in her leadership. The timing was deliberate while she was still stranded far from Boston, unable to mount an effective defense. When she returned to Ethan, he had already resumed working on her car movements, more focused and urgent than before. "Bad news?" he asked without looking up. "Nothing I can't handle." The confidence in her voice was practiced, perfected through years of crisis management. "I've survived worse challenges." "I'm sure you have." Ethan connected a different diagnostic tool to the car's computer system. "That's the thing about success. It's not just about how high you climb, but what you carry with you on the way up." The observation struck uncomfortably close to truths Olivia rarely examined. What had she carried with her during her ascent to corporate success? What had she left behind? "I should check on Sophie," she said, needing distance from both the work on her car and the unexpected introspection Ethan's words had triggered. Upstairs, she found Sophie arranging Christmas cookies on a plate, tongue poking out in concentration as she created an elaborate pattern. "These are for you to take on your trip tomorrow," the little girl explained. "So you don't forget us?" "That's very thoughtful. Thank you, Sophie." Olivia sat at the table watching this child who barely knew her prepare such a heartfelt gift. "I won't forget you or your dad, or Pine Ridge." Sophie looked up, her expression suddenly serious beyond her years. "Daddy works too hard sometimes. He pretends he's not sad, but sometimes at night he looks at pictures of Mommy and thinks, I don't know." She arranged another cookie carefully. "Does he smile when he's fixing your car?" The question caught Olivia off guard. "Yes, sometimes, when he figures something out." Sophie nodded, satisfied. "Good. He needs to smile more. That's what Grandma says." The simple observation carried profound weight, this young child worrying about her father's happiness, while he focused entirely on ensuring hers. Olivia thought about Ethan's abandoned engineering career, the innovative designs he now pursued in stolen hours between car repairs, the life he'd built centered entirely around his daughter's well-being. "Your dad is a remarkable man," Olivia said softly. "You're lucky to have each other." Sophie nodded solemnly. "I know, but sometimes I think he needs somebody else too. Somebody who understands the complicated stuff he makes. Grown-up friends." Before Olivia could respond to this unexpectedly perceptive assessment, Sophie's expression changed suddenly, her eyes narrowing with childish suspicion. "You're not going to take Daddy's special invention, are you? The one under the tarp, because that's his most important project ever?" The directness of the question took Olivia aback. "Of course not. Why would you think that?" "Because you looked at it for a long time. And because Daddy's old company took his ideas." Sophie's loyalty to her father shone fierce and protective. "He works on it at night when I'm sleeping. Says it's going to help doctors save people like Mommy." Olivia felt a pang of guilt, recalling how her first instinct upon seeing Ethan's designs had indeed been to assess their business potential. "I would never take your dad's invention, Sophie. That would be wrong." The little girl studied her face intently, then nodded, apparently satisfied. "Good, because he needs to finish it himself. He promised Mommy he would help people." The conversation shifted to lighter topics as Sophie described her school friends and favorite subjects, but Olivia remained struck by the child's protective instincts. In Sophie's simple worldview, ideas belonged to their creators and promises made to loved ones were sacred obligations. Concepts often forgotten in the complex world of intellectual property rights and corporate acquisitions, Olivia navigated daily. Evening arrived with restored power throughout Pine Ridge, and most roads cleared except the smaller back routes. After a simple dinner of leftovers and hot chocolate, Sophie insisted on their final Christmas tradition, watching It's a Wonderful Life on the small television in the apartment. "We watch it every Christmas night," she explained already, in pajamas decorated with rockets and stars. "It's about a man who thinks he's not important but then finds out he really is." Ethan emerged from the garage, exhausted but satisfied. "Your car will be ready by 6 a.m. Not perfect, but drivable to Boston. Main highways are clearing well." "Thank you." The words felt inadequate for everything he'd done, not just fixing her car, but opening his home and Christmas celebrations to a stranger. "I appreciate everything. Just doing what needed doing," he replied, simply settling beside Sophie on the couch. "Nothing special about that." But there was something special about it, Olivia realized as she joined them for the movie. In her world, every action came with calculation, expected returns, strategic advantages, negotiated compensations. Ethan had helped her without any such considerations, driven by a simpler, more fundamental ethic: someone needed help, and he could provide it. As the movie played, Sophie gradually dozed off against her father's shoulder, the excitement of Christmas Day finally catching up to her. Ethan carefully carried her to bed in the alcove, tucking her in with practiced gentleness. When he returned, Olivia had turned off the movie and was staring thoughtfully out the window at the snow-covered town, now dotted with restored Christmas lights. "Your daughter is extraordinary," she said quietly, perceptive beyond her years. "She's had to be." Ethan joined her by the window. Losing her mother so young forced her to understand things most kids don't think about until much later. "She's worried about you," Olivia revealed. "Thinks you need grown-up friends who understand your work." A soft, surprised laugh escaped him. "That sounds like Sophie, always taking care of me when I'm supposed to be taking care of her." He glanced toward the sleeping alcove. "She's right, though. This town is wonderful for many things, but intellectual stimulation and engineering innovation isn't its strong suit." "Your microgrid designed for hospitals," Olivia began carefully. "It has enormous potential. Have you considered partnering with a company that could help develop and distribute it? Not selling the rights, but a true collaborative partnership." Ethan's expression grew guarded. "Most partnerships I've seen end with the inventor losing control while the company reaps the benefits. It doesn't have to be that way." The idea forming in Olivia's mind was unconventional, but increasingly compelling. What if the inventor maintained control and ownership throughout? What if the partnership was about providing resources and connections, not acquiring rights? "Sounds too good to be true from a corporate perspective," Ethan said skeptically. "What would the company gain?" Olivia turned from the window to face him directly. "First, implementation rights. Association with genuinely innovative technology. The satisfaction of putting life-saving solutions into the world." She paused. "Not everything has to be measured solely by profit margins." Ethan studied her with new interest. "Those don't sound like typical CEO talking points." "Maybe this CEO is reconsidering some fundamentals," Olivia admitted. "Thanks to an unexpected Christmas detour and a very wise 88-year-old. The moment between them deepened, charged with possibilities neither had anticipated when her car broke down in the snowstorm. Ethan's expression softened, the defensive wariness giving way to cautious hope. "I'd need to see any partnership proposal in writing," he said finally, "with clear protection for my intellectual property rights." "Of course, I wouldn't suggest anything less." Olivia hesitated, then added, "But that conversation can wait for another time, after I've handled my current crisis." The reminder of her imminent departure and the challenges waiting in Boston settled between them like a physical presence. Tomorrow she would return to her world of board meetings and corporate strategies, of power struggles and investment deals. And Ethan would continue his quiet life in Pine Ridge, repairing cars by day and pursuing his innovations by night, raising his remarkable daughter with the values he held dear. Two worlds briefly intersecting during a Christmas snowstorm, soon to diverge again. Yet something had changed, something neither could quite name, but both could feel. A connection formed, a perspective shifted, a possibility revealed. 6 a.m., Ethan confirmed quietly. "Your car will be ready." Morning arrived with crystal clarity, the storm having swept the Vermont sky clean of clouds, leaving only piercing blue and golden sunrise. Olivia woke at 5, giving herself time to prepare for the journey back to Boston and the corporate battle awaiting her. The apartment was quiet. Ethan already downstairs working on final preparations for her car, Sophie still asleep in her alcove. Olivia packed efficiently, tucking Sophie's carefully prepared cookie package into her bag last. Her business clothes felt strange now, like armor being donned after days of unexpected peace. The cashmere sweater and designer jeans she'd worn yesterday were replaced by her tailored wool suit and silk blouse, CEO Olivia Bennett reasserting herself with each button fastened. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found Sophie sitting at the kitchen table, still in pajamas but fully awake, solemnly coloring what appeared to be a farewell card. The little girl looked up, her expression serious beyond her years. "I made this for you," she said, pushing the homemade card across the table. "So you remember us." The crayon drawing showed 3 figures standing beside a Christmas tree, Sophie, Ethan, and Olivia, holding hands. Above them, written in careful child's handwriting, our Christmas friend. It's beautiful, Sophie, thank you. Emotion tightened Olivia's throat as she accepted the card. I'll keep it on my desk in Boston. Sophie studied her head tilted slightly. You look different in those clothes, more like a grown-up boss lady and less like someone who makes snow angels. The observation was disarmingly accurate. Olivia felt different in her corporate attire, more distant, more protected, less accessible. These are my work clothes for important meetings. Are the people at your meetings nice? Do they make you cookies and let you decorate them? Sophie's questions cut to the heart of differences between the worlds Olivia was navigating. Not usually, business meetings are different from Christmas traditions. How could she explain corporate politics and boardroom power struggles to this child who measured relationships in cookies shared and stories told? Sophie nodded sagely. Daddy says some grown-ups forget how to play and just work all the time. He says that's why he left his big job because they forgot what really matters. Before Olivia could respond to this surprising insight, footsteps on the stairs announced Ethan's arrival. He looked exhausted but satisfied, wiping traces of grease from his hands with a shop rag. Your chariot awaits, Miss Bennett. His attempted formality was belied by the warmth in his eyes. Not quite factory specs, but she'll get you to Boston safely. Downstairs, the Mercedes gleamed under the garage lights, its hood now closed engine purring with steady confidence. Olivia circled it slowly, marveling at the transformation from lifeless metal to functioning machine. How did you manage this overnight? Engineering degree has to be good for something. Ethan patted the car's roof with quiet pride. I bypassed the damaged electronic control module with a custom solution. You'll only have basic functions. No advanced driver assistance systems, no fancy climate zones, but the essentials work fine. Heat lights, engine brakes. Olivia checked her watch, 5:45 a.m. If she left now, she could reach Boston by early afternoon with time to prepare for the emergency board meeting. I don't know how to thank you properly for everything. No thanks needed. Ethan's response was genuine without pretense or expectation. Anyone would have done the same. No, Olivia countered softly. They wouldn't have. Sophie hugged Olivia's legs, suddenly face pressed against the expensive fabric of her suit. Promise you will come back sometime for ice skating and movie night. Kneeling to the child's level, Olivia found herself making a commitment she hadn't planned. I promise, Sophie, I'll come back to visit. The drive to Boston proceeded smoothly, the main highways cleared efficiently by Vermont and Massachusetts road crews. Ethan's mechanical handiwork proved flawless. The car performed reliably despite its jury-rigged systems. As miles accumulated between Olivia and Pine Ridge, she felt herself transforming back into CEO Bennett, mental gears shifting from Christmas cookies and snow angels to strategic defensive positions and alliance-building tactics. Janet called as Olivia crossed the Massachusetts border. Where are you? The board's moved the meeting up to 3 p.m. Thompson's have been calling individual members all morning. I'll be there by 1:30. Have the latest financials ready and book the main conference room. Olivia's voice carried the crisp authority that had built Bennett Health Technologies from startup to industry leader. And Janet, find out who else Thompson's been meeting with besides Richardson and Westfield. I need to know who's aligned against me. Already on it. And Wright called. He wants a private meeting before the board convenes. Says he has questions only you can answer. James Wright's timing was deliberate, testing her preparation and composure before the crucial vote. Schedule him for 2 p.m., my office, not his hotel. The familiar Boston skyline appeared on the horizon, glass towers reflecting winter sunlight. Olivia's penthouse apartment welcomed her with pristine minimalism. Everything precisely where she'd left it, climate control, maintaining perfect temperature, not a speck of dust visible on the sleek furniture. After the cozy chaos of Ethan's apartment, the spotless perfection felt strangely sterile. Showered and changed into fresh business attire, a power suit in charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes, Olivia arrived at Bennett Health Technologies headquarters with 40 minutes to spare before her meeting with Wright. The executive floor hummed with tense energy, employees offering nervous smiles as she strode toward her office. Janet appeared instantly, tablet in hand, relief evident on her face. Thank God you're back. It's worse than we thought. Thompson's financial errors weren't mistakes. They were deliberate misrepresentations designed to fall apart under scrutiny. To sabotage the Wright deal? Olivia concluded the pieces falling into place and create a leadership crisis. Exactly. And there's more. Thompson's been meeting with MedTech Solutions executives for months. Private dinners, golf outings, all carefully kept off official calendars. The betrayal stung despite Olivia's preparedness for it. George Thompson had been with Bennett Health Technologies for 8 years, one of her earliest executive hires. He's positioning himself for a golden parachute. If our deal fails and MedTech acquires us in the resulting devaluation, he's expecting a cushy landing. Olivia settled behind her desk, reviewing the materials Janet had prepared: financial corrections, project timelines, clinical trial results, everything she needed to counter Thompson's sabotage. Her gaze fell on Sophie's crayon drawing, which she'd placed beside her computer monitor. The simple image of three people holding hands beside a Christmas tree seemed incongruous among spreadsheets and corporate documents, yet somehow essential. At precisely 2 p.m., James Wright arrived, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, in a bespoke suit that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly income. His handshake was firm, his expression carefully neutral as he took the offered seat across from Olivia. "Quite the adventure you've had, Ms. Bennett. Stranded in Vermont during the biggest storm of the season." Wright's tone revealed nothing of his intentions. "I trust your unexpected detour wasn't too disruptive." "On the contrary, Mr. Wright, sometimes disruptions provide valuable perspective." Olivia met his gaze directly. "But I suspect you're not here to discuss my travel difficulties." Wright nodded, getting straight to business. "The financial projections I received contain significant discrepancies. Normally, this would end our discussion immediately, trust being paramount in any investment relationship. Those projections were not authorized by me." Olivia pushed forward the corrected documents Janet had prepared. "These are the accurate figures which align with all our previous discussions and documentation." Wright examined the materials, his expression revealing nothing. "MedTech Solutions contacted me yesterday. Their offer is compelling: immediate implementation, established distribution channels, existing hospital relationships. An inferior technology that will miss 30% more early-stage conditions than our system," Olivia countered. "Technology that could mean the difference between life and death for patients like Emily Miller." Wright's eyebrow raised slightly. Emily Miller. Olivia hadn't intended to mention Emily. The name had emerged from some deeper place than calculated strategy. A woman who died from a brain tumor that was misdiagnosed until it was too late. One of countless patients our advanced detection system could save. Compelling anecdote, but business decisions require more than emotional appeals, Ms. Bennett. Wright's voice remained measured, testing her response. Olivia leaned forward, her decision crystallizing in this moment. What if business decisions required both, Mr. Wright? What if the most successful innovations were those that balance profit potential with genuine human impact? For the first time, genuine interest flickered in Wright's eyes, an idealistic position. A necessary one. Olivia stood, moving to the window overlooking Boston. The healthcare industry has operated too long on pure profit calculations, weighing lawsuit costs against safety implementations, quarterly returns against lives saved. She turned back to face him. What if Horizon Capital became known for investments that transformed both balance sheets and patient outcomes? Wright studied her with new attention. "You've changed since our meeting in Burlington. Something happened in that small Vermont town. Perhaps I simply remembered why I founded this company in the first place." Olivia returned to her desk, picking up Sophie's drawing. "A child gave me this yesterday, a brilliant little girl being raised by a single father who abandoned a prestigious engineering career because he refused to compromise his principles. He's now developing a microgrid power system for rural hospitals that could prevent countless deaths during power outages." And this relates to our investment discussion. How exactly? It relates because I'm proposing a partnership model that supports innovators while delivering returns, one that prioritizes both profit and purpose. Olivia outlined her vision for Bennett Health Technologies, moving forward a model where the company partnered with independent innovators rather than simply acquiring their intellectual property, where metrics of success included lives improved alongside revenue generated. Wright listened without interruption, his initial skepticism gradually shifting to calculated interest. When Olivia finished, he remained silent for several moments before responding. "Ambitious, unconventional, potentially revolutionary if executed properly." He straightened his already perfect tie. and considerably more interesting than MedTech's standard acquisition approach. Before Wright could elaborate further, Janet appeared at the door. The board is assembling Olivia. Thompson just arrived with outside counsel. The moment of truth had arrived. Olivia gathered her materials, including Sophie's drawing, which she carefully tucked into her portfolio. Shall we continue this discussion after the board meeting, Mr. Wright? I believe I'll observe the proceedings if you don't mind. Wright's request wasn't standard protocol, but Olivia immediately recognized the strategic advantage of having the potential investor witness the internal power struggle firsthand. By all means, the boardroom fell silent as Olivia entered with Wright's surprise registering on several faces, particularly George Thompson's. The CFO quickly masked his discomfort, nodding professionally as if this development had been anticipated. Board Chairman Richardson called the meeting to order, his formal tone barely concealing the tension permeating the room. Before we address the agenda, I believe our CFO has pressing concerns regarding the company's financial projections and the pending Horizon Capital investment. Richardson nodded toward Thompson, the choreography of this attempted coup now transparent to Olivia. Thompson cleared his throat, distributing documents with practiced efficiency. As you can see from these projections, the timeline presented to Mr. Wright was overly optimistic. Implementation would require at least 18 additional months with significantly higher development costs than initially estimated. Olivia allowed him to continue his presentation, uninterrupted, watching board members' expressions shift from concern to outright alarm at the manipulated figures. When Thompson finally concluded, satisfied with the damage he believed he'd inflicted, Olivia rose slowly from her seat. Thank you, George, for that creative interpretation of our financial position. Her voice remained calm, controlled. Now, if board members would review the accurate projections verified by our independent auditors this morning, you'll note significant discrepancies from what you just received. Janet distributed the corrected documents as Olivia continued. What you're witnessing is not a financial miscalculation, but a deliberate attempt to undermine this company's future, specifically to sabotage our deal with Horizon Capital and position us for a hostile takeover by MedTech Solutions. Thompson's face flushed. That's a serious accusation, Olivia. One you can't possibly substantiate. Actually, I can. Olivia nodded to Janet, who distributed additional documents, meeting records, emails, phone logs, meticulously documenting Thompson's clandestine communications with MedTech executives. Our security team has been monitoring these interactions for months. The only question remaining is which board members were aware of or complicit in this betrayal of fiduciary duty. Richardson's complexion paled visibly. Westfield suddenly became fascinated with his water glass. The remaining board members exchanged glances ranging from shocked to calculating. Thompson attempted recovery. This is a desperate fabrication. The company is failing under Bennett's leadership. The right investment is our last hope, and her unrealistic promises have compromised it beyond salvation. Actually, James Wright's voice cut through the tension as he rose from his observer position. I find Ms. Bennett's leadership remarkably clear-eyed and forward-thinking, particularly her vision for a new partnership model that could revolutionize medical technology development. The unexpected endorsement shifted the atmosphere instantly. Board members who moments before had been considering Thompson's position now reassessed political instincts, realigning toward the apparent victor. In fact, Wright continued, Horizon Capital is prepared to increase our investment beyond the originally discussed amount contingent upon implementation of this partnership model and, of course, leadership continuity. The message was unmistakable. Support Olivia Bennett or lose the investment entirely. Thompson recognized defeat, but attempted one final counterstrike. The board should consider whether someone who abandons her duties during a critical business juncture, stranded in Vermont playing Christmas games while the company faces crisis, possesses the dedication required for this position. The reference to her absence might have landed effectively had Olivia not spent her drive from Pine Ridge preparing for exactly this attack. She opened her portfolio and removed Sophie's drawing, placing it deliberately on the conference table. During my abandonment of duties, as Mr. Thompson characterizes it, I was reminded why I founded this company in the first place. Not merely to generate impressive returns, though our 5-year performance speaks for itself, but to transform healthcare through technology that prioritizes human outcomes alongside profit margins. She looked each board member in the eye before continuing. Bennett Health Technologies stands at a crossroads. We can continue the traditional path acquiring innovations, prioritizing quarterly returns above all else, measuring success solely in financial metrics. Or we can pioneer a new approach, partnering with innovators, preserving their creative control, while providing our resources and reach measuring success in both profits and lives improved. The boardroom remained silent as Olivia outlined her vision, the same she had shared with Wright earlier, now expanded with specific implementation details. As she spoke, she noticed the gradual transformation in her audience, from skepticism to consideration to genuine interest. This isn't about choosing between profitability and purpose, she concluded. It's about recognizing that in healthcare technology, the most sustainable path to exceptional returns lies in never losing sight of the human lives our innovations impact. The vote, when finally called, wasn't even close. Thompson was removed from his position effective immediately, pending investigation into his communications with MedTech. Richardson retained his chairmanship by a narrow margin, his authority significantly diminished. And Olivia received unanimous endorsement of her leadership and strategic vision, including the new partnership model. As the meeting concluded, Wright approached with newfound respect. "Impressive recovery, Ms. Bennett. I look forward to finalizing our expanded investment agreement." Olivia nodded her acknowledgement, but her thoughts had already shifted elsewhere, to a small garage in Pine Ridge, Vermont, where a brilliant engineer was likely closing up shop for the evening, his groundbreaking microgrid design covered by a tarp until he could find time to work on it again. "Janet," she called to her assistant as the boardroom emptied, "cancel my meetings tomorrow. I'm taking a personal day." "A personal day," Janet repeated, checking her records to confirm such a phenomenon existed. "You haven't taken one in 3 years. Then I'm overdue." The drive back to Vermont the following morning felt different from her journey to Boston, less urgent, but somehow more important. Olivia had spent the evening preparing documents outlining the partnership model she envisioned, specifically tailored to Ethan's microgrid innovation. The proposal preserved his complete intellectual property ownership, while providing Bennett Health Technologies resources, connections, and distribution channels to bring the system to market. Snow still blanketed the landscape, but the roads were fully cleared now, allowing her to make good time. Pine Ridge appeared on the horizon around noon, its modest buildings and church steeple, a stark contrast to Boston's glass and steel skyline. She drove directly to Miller's Auto Repair, only to find the garage doors closed with a handwritten sign, "Emergency call back by 2 p.m. Uncertain how to proceed, Olivia drove through the small town, eventually stopping at Mary's Bakery. The cheerful bell announced her arrival, drawing immediate recognition from the proprietor. "Well, look who's back already." Mary's welcome was as warm as her freshly baked bread. "Ethan said you'd left for Boston yesterday. Business all sorted out." "Yes, thank you. I'm actually looking for Ethan. His shop's closed." Mary nodded, wiping flour from her hands. "Old Mrs. Abernathy's car broke down again about 5 miles out of town. Ethan went to tow her back. Should be returning soon." She studied Olivia with unconcealed curiosity. Not often we get city folks returning to Pine Ridge voluntarily, especially big-shot CEOs. Olivia accepted the coffee Mary offered, settling at the same table she'd occupied with Ethan and Sophie 2 days earlier. "I have a business proposal for him regarding his engineering project." "The hospital power system," Mary raised an eyebrow. "He's been working on that for years, ever since Emily passed. Brilliant idea, but no resources to develop it properly. That might be changing soon." Olivia sipped her coffee, surprised at how comfortable she felt in this small-town bakery compared to the upscale Boston establishments she typically frequented. Mary leaned against the counter, her expression turning serious. "Ethan's not just a good mechanic, you know. That man's heart is gold all the way through. After Emily died, half the town needed car repairs they couldn't afford. Single mothers, elderly folks on fixed incomes, somehow their bills always came up less than expected. Sometimes disappeared entirely. He seems like a remarkable person. He is, and protective as a mama bear about that little girl of his." Mary's implication was clear, a warning not to cause harm to this family she clearly cherished. "Sophie hasn't stopped talking about you since Christmas. First time she's connected with anyone like that since her mother died." Before Olivia could respond, the bakery door opened, admitting a blast of cold air and a very excited 8-year-old. Sophie launched herself across the bakery, colliding with Olivia in an enthusiastic hug. You came back, I told Daddy you would, but he said you were probably super busy with important CEO stuff. Ethan appeared in the doorway behind her, surprise evident on his face. Olivia, I didn't expect to see you again so soon. I had a business proposition that couldn't wait. Olivia found herself suddenly nervous, a sensation foreign to someone who regularly negotiated multi-million-dollar deals without batting an eye. Sophie looked between them with obvious delight. Is it about Daddy's special invention for hospitals? Are you going to help people together? Mary took Sophie's hand with the practiced ease of a surrogate grandmother. Let's go check on those special cookies I was baking for you while your dad and Ms. Bennett talk business. When they were alone at the table, Ethan sat across from Olivia, his expression guarded yet hopeful. Your car, running okay after the trip to Boston? Perfectly. Your engineering skills apparently extend well beyond theoretical design. Olivia placed her portfolio on the table between them, which is partly why I'm here. She outlined the events of the emergency board meeting, the attempted coup, and the resulting strategic shift for Bennett Health Technologies. Ethan listened attentively, asking occasional clarifying questions that revealed his quick grasp of corporate dynamics despite his years away from that world. So your board unanimously approved this new partnership model. He sounded impressed but cautious. That's uncommon in my experience with corporate leadership. Having a major investor make his support conditional upon it certainly helped persuade the reluctant members. Olivia smiled slightly. But yes, it represents a fundamental shift in how we approach innovation. And you're here because Olivia opened the portfolio, removing the detailed proposal she'd prepared. Because I'd like your microgrid system to be our first partnership under this new model. Ethan accepted the document, reading carefully, his expression gradually shifting from skepticism to cautious interest. This preserves my complete ownership of the intellectual property, with a licensing agreement that compensates both parties fairly while prioritizing implementation in rural and underserved medical facilities. Olivia watched him process the details, recognizing the engineer's mind, methodically evaluating all angles. You retain creative and technical control. We provide resources, regulatory navigation, and distribution channels. And the accelerated development timeline, aggressive but achievable with proper support. Olivia leaned forward slightly. Your design could be saving lives within 18 months instead of the years it might take developing it alone. Ethan set the proposal down, his gaze meeting hers directly. Why me, why this project? You run a billion-dollar company with access to countless innovations. What makes my garage project worth a personal visit from the CEO? The question penetrated beyond business strategy to the deeper truth Olivia had been processing since her car broke down in the Vermont snowstorm. Because your project embodies exactly what healthcare technology should be, innovation driven by human need rather than market analysis. Because you refused to compromise your principles even when it meant walking away from career advancement. And because she hesitated before continuing, because sometimes the most valuable partnerships are those that challenge us to be better versions of ourselves. Something shifted in Ethan's expression, recognition of a truth that transcended business propositions. You've changed since your car broke down 3 days ago. Not changed, remembered. Olivia glanced toward the bakery kitchen where Sophie's laughter could be heard. Your daughter asked if the people at my meetings make cookies and let me decorate them. They don't, and maybe that's been part of the problem. Ethan's smile transformed his face, and erasing the careful reserve he'd maintained. You know, partnership agreements typically require extensive negotiation. I anticipated that. Olivia matched his smile with her own. I've booked a room at the Pine Ridge Inn for the next few days. However long it takes to address your concerns. The inn's fine, but their restaurant options are limited. Ethan's voice carried new warmth. Sophie and I were planning homemade pizza for dinner tonight. She'd be thrilled if you joined us. For negotiation purposes, of course. Of course. Strictly business. Olivia felt something unlock in her chest, a door long closed now opening to possibilities beyond corporate achievement. 6 months later, the Bennett-Miller partnership launched its first product, a microgrid power system for rural and disaster-zone medical facilities. The initial implementation in 3 remote Appalachian hospitals exceeded all performance projections, generating both humanitarian acclaim and substantial investor interest. Ethan directed the technical development from a newly expanded facility in Pine Ridge, creating 12 high-skilled jobs in the small town while maintaining his auto repair business. To keep things real, as he explained to industry reporters. Olivia found herself making the drive between Boston and Pine Ridge with increasing frequency, initially for project oversight, then for strategic planning weekends that somehow always included movie nights with Sophie ice skating on the town pond or helping with science fair projects. Bennett Health Technologies' new headquarters building included a dedicated innovation center where independent developers could collaborate without corporate acquisition, a model that attracted growing attention throughout the medical technology sector. The Christmas following their unconventional meeting, Pine Ridge hosted the Bennett Health Technologies holiday celebration, not at a luxury hotel, but at the town community center decorated by local children. Employees and townspeople mingled easily, barriers of corporate hierarchy temporarily dissolved in favor of genuine connection. As snow began falling again outside the windows, Olivia found herself standing beside the community Christmas tree, larger than the one in Ethan's garage, but decorated with the same handmade ornaments that had caught her attention a year ago. Looking for our addition, Ethan appeared beside her, pointing to a wooden star now hanging prominently among the ornaments. This one had 3 names carved into it: Ethan, Sophie, and Olivia. Sophie's idea? Olivia asked, though she already knew the answer. She believes families should have unified representation on community trees. Ethan's voice carried amused affection for his daughter's definitive opinions. Told me it was about time we made it official, since Olivia's here all the time anyway. Perceptive as always, Olivia smiled, thinking of the drawer in Ethan's guest room that had gradually filled with her clothes, the toothbrush that had taken permanent residence in his bathroom, the weekend visits that stretched increasingly into the work week. Out of the mouths of babes, Ethan glanced towards Sophie, who was teaching younger children how to make paper snowflakes across the room. She also suggested I should finally ask Olivia the big question, since, and I quote, grown-ups take forever to do important things. Olivia's breath caught as Ethan reached into his pocket, withdrawing not a ring box, as she momentarily expected, but a small handmade ornament, a miniature replica of her Mercedes. The night your car broke down changed everything, he said softly. For both of us, seems appropriate to commemorate it. Olivia accepted the ornament, turning it to find tiny writing engraved on the bottom. Sometimes breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. Sophie helped with the wording, Ethan admitted, though she wanted it to say happily ever after, which felt a bit presumptuous. I don't know, Olivia replied, reaching for his hand. The kid's been right about pretty much everything else so far. As they hung the ornament on the tree together, Olivia reflected on the journey of the past year, from stranded CEO to woman rediscovering parts of herself long sacrificed to corporate ambition. Bennett Health Technologies was thriving under the new partnership model, with growing evidence that balancing profit with purpose actually enhanced both. Her personal life, previously limited to business connections and networking events, now included movie nights, homemade pizza science projects, and a small-town community that had gradually accepted her as one of their own. By the way, Ethan said casually, I've been meaning to ask if you'd consider making Pine Ridge a more permanent arrangement. Sophie thinks your Boston apartment is too empty to be happy in. Olivia laughed, recognizing the child's assessment was entirely accurate. Is that Sophie's opinion or yours? Let's call it a family consensus. His eyes held both humor and deeper meaning, with room for formal negotiation, of course. Of course. Olivia glanced around the community center at the unusual blend of corporate employees and small-town residents at Sophie, directing her snowflake workshop with CEO-level confidence at the Christmas tree, bearing the ornament commemorating the breakdown that had led to her most important breakthrough. Though I suspect we both already know where those negotiations will end. Outside, snow continued falling on Pine Ridge, covering corporate cars and farm trucks alike with the same pristine blanket, transforming the ordinary into something magical, revealing possibilities previously hidden in plain sight. Just as it had done exactly 1 year before, when a Christmas Eve breakdown had unexpectedly repaired what success had broken.